Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will discuss about identification of textile fibers. A large variety of consumer goods made of different textiles are available in the market under different price segments. Generally, fabrics are labeled, and as per the legal requirement, the manufacturer provides the information of the fiber content. When the fabrics are made into products such as apparel, home textiles such as curtains, upholstery, etc., the label may be present or it may not provide information on the fiber content. If the fabric fails to perform as per the end-use requirement, the consumer loses his investment on the product. Therefore, consumers should have knowledge of the properties of the fiber in the fabric, so that he can compare its performance against the price range of fabric and its intended end use. Today the market is flooded with many counterfeit textiles that resemble the genuine fabrics but give very poor performance. The consumer will be confused to take care of the fabrics during laundering. To address these problems, it is advised that the consumers should build themselves with the knowledge of fibers, properties of fibers and their processing. This helps the consumer to easily identify the fiber content in the fabrics and can take an intelligent decision about purchase of the fabric or its product. The knowledge of the fiber identification is also required for the wholesaler and the retailer, as they have to deal with customers and they are answerable for all the sale transactions. This knowledge may also be much useful to forensic scientists to deal with some criminal cases where the clothing of the victim will be a prime evidence. The Textile Fiber Product Identification Act of 1960s, brought in by the federal government of USA, has provided the classification and generic names to the fibers and instructed the manufacturers to provide information of the fiber content on label. As per the law, it is mandatory. The Act also clarified many issues related to the fiber products and their identification. The consumer will be at a greatest disadvantage when the composition of the fiber content in a fabric is not known. He cannot go for laboratory analysis, but he can rely on certain non-technical tests to arrive at the fiber groups. In the absence of special equipment and facilities for identification of the fiber content in a fabric, one can rely on non-technical tests such as appearance, feeling test and burning tests. These tests have limitations of their own, but helpful to identify the fiber groups. Physical appearance. The physical appearance of a fabric sometimes indicates the probable fiber content. Generally, natural fibers can be identified tentatively. The yarns are drawn from the fabric separately, warp-wise and weft-wise. The parameters checked are fiber length, luster, fabric surface, fabric weight. The fibers are either staple or filamentous. Generally, all natural fibers are staple except silk. However, spun yarns are made even from filament fibers by cutting and spinning on cotton system. The luster of the fabric can be an indication of the fiber content such as silk, rayon, polyester, or any synthetic fiber. Cotton is dull, but mercerized cotton is bright. Silk has luster that is different from other fibers. Rayon has maximum luster. Banana, linen and jute has little luster as compared to cotton. Fabric surface may be smooth, soft or hard. Wool is soft to touch. Bast fibers are hard to touch. All synthetics are smooth to touch. The fabric heaviness can be tentatively checked in hand. If it is light in weight but looks voluminous, it may be wool. All natural and man-made cellulosic fabrics are heavy. Linen fabrics are made little heavier than the other cellulosic fabrics. All synthetics are generally light in weight. This test is purely perception of the feeling of a fabric when it is handled. One acquires this expertise after handling many fabrics. To understand this skilled perception, run your fingers over the fabric. When the fingers become warm, it may be a wool fabric. If the fingers become cool by losing heat, it may be one of the cellulosic fibers such as cotton, linen, jute or even rayon, as they are good conductors of heat. One more example of skilled perception is silk crepes and chiffons versus rayon, polyester crepes and chiffons. Silk is smoother to touch, while others are hard to touch. But this test has limitation of identifying the exact fiber content. Among the non-technical tests, burning test may be reliable as it gives scope to identify the fiber groups used in daily use textiles. The fibers vary in their burning properties, and that makes sense to utilize the test for identification of the fibers. The yarns from fabric should be separated warp-wise and weft-wise for testing. Observations should be made when the yarns approach the flame, in the flame, rate of burning, after removing from the flame, the odor and the residue. The table portrayed here has the recorded observations of the frequently used fibers. Apparently, the burning properties of many fibers show similar characteristics which may confuse the consumer. But it provides preliminary examination and scope to eliminate some of the fiber groups. It gives a broad conclusion about the fiber groups present in the given fabric. When laboratory facilities are available, it is better to use them to confirm the fiber content. These techniques are much more reliable for fiber identification than the non-technical tests. However, it requires knowledge and skill in handling analytical equipment and chemicals. microscopic test is conducted to help identify fibers with distinct features such as wool. The longitudinal view of the fibers show the surface characteristics of the fiber. The fiber is cut perpendicularly to get a thin cross-section, and when viewed under microscope it reveals the contour or shape of the fiber with its internal structure. Generally, an optical microscope with 100x magnification is used to have clear picture of the fiber's longitudinal as well as cross-sectional view. A projection microscope can be preferred as the magnification is higher and the bigger screen facilitates tracing of the fiber shape. A polarizing microscope with a fiber lens provides good contrast and can be used for most specific observations such as extinction bands in cotton fiber. To make a sample, few fibers are withdrawn from the yarn and placed on a slide in parallel fashion. To make a thin cross-section, microtome is being used. The longitudinal view of the from flame readily dropping the molten polymer uncrushable bead spandex-like refuses does not shrink away from flame burns with melting continues to burn with melting moderate chemical smell soft, sticky and gummy residue fiber and the cross-sectional shape can certainly provide some useful information for identification of fibers. Use of chemicals for identification or confirmation of the fiber content in fabrics is the ultimate technique without the use of much advanced techniques. Solubility test. The fibers are soluble in some of the acids or alkalis or organic solvents. By taking results of the burning and microscopic tests, chemical tests can certainly provide useful confirmation of the fiber. The density of the fiber is also an indicator of fiber identification if a density gradient color is available. Density is the mass per unit volume of a substance measured in gm/cm3. So far, we have taken an overview of the technical and non-technical tests for identification of the fibers. These methods can throw light if the fabric is made of 100% one fiber. In case of blends where the yarn in a fabric is made out of two or more than two fibers, it is difficult to identify all fibers present in the fabric. Other advanced techniques used especially for detection of fiber content in blends are optical and electron microscopy, infrared spectroscopy, UV visible spectroscopy, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction, thermal analysis. The quantitative analysis of the fiber blends depends mainly on eliminating one of fibers by dissolving in a suitable solvent and finally estimate the content of the fiber left out. In case tertiary blends, 2 fibers need to be eliminated by following the procedure twice. Today we have learned about different techniques of identification of fibers in the fabrics. This information is very much required to assess the induced performance of the fabrics and also their proper maintenance.